Welcome to Lesson 5 of our series on reading and writing engineering research articles. In this one, we'll be looking at the second division of the research article, where we'll be looking at the continuity and novelty of the research. Again, this is from Chapter 5 of the textbook. And you might be tempted to think that because in this division the researcher reports what they did, that it's sort of like a report. But it's much more than that. Because in a report, you simply say what you did, but in a journal article, you have to connect with the previous work and also show how your work is distinct from that previous work, therefore how it adds to the previous research. The connection is made in the framework. That's what we'll be looking at in this first part of the lesson. And then in the second part, we'll talk about the research details, how you show that your work is distinct from other previous work. So research can be thought of as like a puzzle. With a puzzle, your work has to add to previous work. It has to expand on it, it has to build on it, but it's also different from a puzzle because with a puzzle, there are only a certain number of pieces, and there's a certain place where they have to go. And there's only one piece that will fit in every particular place. But in research, many people are working on the same puzzle. And if someone else puts that piece in place before you do, you won't be able to publish. So remember that in this division, we're looking at article structure. We're looking at the second claim. In science, that you've gathered data in a reliable and valid way, or in engineering, that you've designed a workable solution. And so in IMRD, in science, the focus is not just on what you did, but on the care that was taken to ensure that you got good results, and therefore that the data are reliable and valid. Similarly, in IPTC, you have to show that your work is founded on a solid foundation, and that you've chosen a reasonable approach to get good results from your research. Now, again, the difference between science and engineering is that in science, you're looking for the data that were generated. And therefore, your focus in the second division is on the fact that you used a similar method to get that data, and therefore you can compare your work with other work. In engineering, you're looking at how your work is distinct and how the new solution proposed is different from previous work. Okay, so research could also be considered to be like a house. There are many houses that are built on the same basic plan, the same basic foundation. But as a person moves into that house, they'll add things that reflect their personal interest. And so they make the house look a little bit different. On the other hand, houses in different parts of the world or different developments may look very different from one another, and yet they have the same basic functions. So within the house, there's a place to sleep, a place to eat, a place to clean up. In the same way, many types of research are built on the same foundation. But as people add their own interests, those are the research details that make each house distinct, each research distinct. On the other hand, within each article, there are similar components that serve similar functions. So framework, again, is like the foundation of the house, and there are many houses that have that same basic design. But the question is, which design are you going to choose? And how are you going to make it your own? So the focus of the different components, these are sometimes difficult to distinguish. But need refers to the limitations or gaps in the previous work, whereas framework refers to the advantage of one previous approach. And research then shows how your work differs from other past work. So you could think of it this way. A lot of work has been done, but there's one thing that hasn't, and so that's where your research is going to be built. On the other hand, your research, like other research, is built on a foundation, and that is a shared foundation with other work. So how do you distinguish framework? In the introduction, you often have limitations or advantages. You'll talk about how the research that's been done before has problems. However, nevertheless, on the other hand, it may talk about this is a good way to do it because. The limitations are the need. The advantages are the framework. In the process division, similarly, you may find the current research, but you may also find the background necessary to understand that current research. Things that have been done before, but that you are building on. That's the foundation, the framework on which the current research details are built. So where do you find it? Again, in the introduction, it may be the last past work cited, the one that has the least limitations. In the process division, you may find it as the background necessary to understand the present work, or the advantages or justification of why you're doing it. Now again, my students will show you how they found the framework in their own articles. Okay, now we're going to show you how to find the framework in your research articles. Remember, for the chemical engineering article, it's IMRD format, so we found that last week in the introduction. So we're going to begin today with the mechanical engineering article.
Okay, let me talk first. The introduction division is in here, and then start the process divisions by the section number 2 here, and this section number 2, they divide into 2 subsections. The first one here and this one. Okay, this one we will look at later because this one is a research detail. And then I find the component marker for the framework is located here because they try to use some keyword like the adopt from 35. So this 35 they try to refer to some work from the past research.
Okay, so we know that this is, even though the citation could refer to either need or framework, we know that this is framework because it says adopted from. So that key word says that we know they're using this past research in their own research. That's the definition of framework.
Yes.
We're going to look at our very unusual electrical engineering article, which again doesn't follow the expected structure very well. So we'll try to explain it.
Yeah, so we start with the second division. So the first is will be start at the session preliminary, and they talk about the sequential clock gating. It should be this is the component NIC because they say this clock gating it don't usually by relay.
So again, usually gives the idea that it's not what we're doing, but what other people have done.
Yeah. And also in here, we say is clock gating synthesis can be based on either, and on the other hand, using the approach, and also in here is however. So this is on the related to the NIC components.
Right. So again, we have the need shown by that however, and then again, normally that would be a separate section break here before it goes into framework, but not in this case.
Yeah. So in the next subsection, they will mention about the framework. We can see in this paper, they will talk about the recognize transparent logic, and also mention the previous work is have implement in some work. Yeah.
So again, you have things like it's based on recognized. So we're basing it on something that's known. And here we're talking about definitions. So again, those are typical parts of framework.
Yeah. And also in here have some one paragraph is talk about the research goal. So they say we propose. And
yeah, so it goes back, it restates the research goal before then going on to talk about what they're actually going to do.
Yeah, and continue with the subsection will be related to framework also, because they say they formulate and verify the legal clock gating on sequential circuits with the LGL and PLGL.
And these are things that other people have done before that they're using. But there's nothing clearly that says that in this section because it's been done, but they're also doing it. So this is like a transition between the framework and their totally new work.
Yeah. And also they talk about the related current work related. So it's we will say that it's the framework components. Yeah. And in here is we be talk about the dependent graph. It's the graph is already done before, and now they build their work on this graph. So we also say this is the framework.
Right, but again, there's nothing there that specifically marks that. You have to know that dependency graphs are well known in the field in order to say that this is framework and not their work.
Yeah, and that is for the framework in the process.
Okay, so we'll look at the other in the next part of the lesson.